It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry do what it takes. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
And I spoiled this a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but it looks like this is very interesting too. This is wow, so aquatic.
Yeah, it has a
That's-
coral,
yeah.
octopus kind
Yes,
of
yes.
vibe going on. Yeah, there was just 3 friends. They doodled. I provide these black light pens,
Mhm.
and I limited each limb to certain colors. So you can sort of see
Ah.
who belongs to who.
Yep, yep.
Based on that. So then, once we had done that, then they just laid on the floor and just tangled their legs around, and I
Yeah.
just photographed it until something, so it's not all under black light. So it's got that coral kind of feel.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we originally met with you as well too, I remember you discussing with us black light was kind of a new venture that you had taken.
Yes,
Is this
yeah.
one of those original projects?
That is probably like the second time I was using black light to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So this time it's pretty experimental.
Yeah.
Like you're like what could we do? Like they drew on their arms too and their faces. And we did stuff with that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But this is what really flew for me.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a little more abstract. It's way more interesting than, I hope they don't hear this. They might be insulted, but, but it's, when it's just them.
It's way more visually interesting to
Yeah.
have something
Abstract.
and simple up for interpretation,
Yeah.
because that kind of feeds other people's minds, right?
Mhm.
If you have, say, well, even like a full body, there is more, like naturally we humans are always looking for the face because
Yeah.
we're social creatures. We're always looking for the eyes
Yeah.
to communicate and all that such as well too. That takes us to one place, and well, you're forcing the perspective to look at something very distinct,
Yeah.
rather than what the eyes are naturally trained to do.
Yeah.
So it's very purposeful.
People like novelty. There's
Mhm.
something novel and interesting because they can tell that it's limbs,
Yeah.
but in the tangle you sort of get lost in it, and yeah, that's what keeps you looking.
Right. So
Yeah.
how much of this here was practical versus editorial effects here?
This is a lot of just practical.
A lot of practical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because is it just like a black blanket or piece of wood or
It was a
something?
black, yeah, it was a black Walmart plush blanket.
Right.
So it was a $20 plush blanket just pinned up, but it's deep and the plushiness just absorbs light so well,
Yeah.
so that you just get that kind of vibe.
and the lighting
Yeah.
you can set up to again kind of
Yep.
help yourself out in the future when
Mhm.
you're doing the editing as well too.
Yeah.
No, that's lovely. And what do we have next year?
Okay.
Ooh.
So this one was what I photographed last summer
wow.
in Washington, D.C. And this was for the 7 Deadly Sins.
This was the project.
Yeah, this is one shot that
Ooh,
came out of it.
Very nice.
It's the same model.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted something to demonstrate wrath. So
Yeah.
we had an art director on this. She had vision for what she wanted to have being portrayed. And then I had to come up with the technicality of how to photograph this. So this is 2 separate photos.
Yeah.
The cliff side is, of course, that was a purchased photo. So it's 3 different photos being blended together. So I photographed her pretty much straight on as you see her with her hand out,
Yep.
like she's shoved. Then this one, I had to go up on a ladder and she was laying on the floor. And I had to have her hair flow. So what did we do?
To look like it was moving.
Yeah.
That's definitely one detail that we can kind of take a look at, and I'm going to be asking lots of questions
Okay,
on how
yeah.
did you do this? Yeah.
Yeah, so we had to have her sitting on the floor, and she had to repeat this over and over because we had to catch it just at the right moment with the flash going off and enough fall back that her hair float. But we didn't want her to like hurt herself either.
Yeah.
So she was just sort of sitting there, kind of, she had great core, so she was able to do this. And she just had to keep falling back and experimenting with how her legs were splaying and her arms. And I knew that if we do it enough times until she was exhausted, one of them would probably work. So that's what we did, just over and over and over.
Yep.
I don't know how many shots we did. Not hundreds, but at least dozens. Yeah. And then, because the way she's lit, I had to have the same lighting reflected. So this is like a daytime photo of this cliff. But then through photo manipulation, you can like color it any way you want. And I had to make this. So we go like that. You can see it's all blues and purples.
Ah,
If you go like that, it's more like a lot of reds.
Right. So, okay. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it really kind of reflects that same story as well, too. Because if you had this person kind of covered in all blues, well, it's going to look very out of place.
Yeah.
Contrast, again. Yeah.
So it's part of the plotting and planning. You have to be like, I have to have this color light, this position, so that it all kind of works together and makes sense. Yeah.
So you had the chance to likely take a lot of photos with this model in particular when trying to go for one specific look. Now, on average, what would you say that how many photos do you take when doing shots like these?
Like, let's say for just this one.
Yeah, let's
thing?
use this model as an example as well, too.
That one was probably a few dozen shots. Then this one would have been quite double. Yeah, once you find the right ones, all the other ones sort of get shoveled off. Like, you don't need them anymore.
Yep.
But I remember, she had to have a lot of endurance. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Just sort of numbers.
That's exactly. And I guess what I'm also going to ask too is like, when do you expect, when you are approaching a project or like this individual, this is a perfect example of, yes, I'm going to have to take many shots because I need this hair to look in a certain way.
Yeah.
To look like a body is falling for the most part.
Yeah.
When do you typically know when things are kind of needing to be repeated over and over again?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If it's, anytime you're involving motion, that's where it comes in.
Right.
So this is pretty static. So the only thing I had to do is we had people off on the side there, like sort of flipping her, like kind of like get all these like. So it's pretty easy. You just had to stand there and hold her hand out and put on a certain expression. Then we shot that a few times and we got it. Then
this one had to be like another 50 photos just to again catch that.
Yeah.
So motion is the typical, like I guess that totally makes sense. Is like it's the degree of motion. It really kind of depends on how many photos you'll have to take. And I mean, for those that are viewing too, we have that kind of in real time and space. When you were working with us, the pose where Clark with the shotgun poses in one spot, 5 photos, another spot, 5 photos, and then that's pretty much it. Whereas I believe Perry here had to run a couple times just to make sure that and Perry's very large endurance really helped him out in that asset as well too. So that's perfect. So motion is definitely correlated to how many photos you might have to be required to take for a project.
That happens in sports photography too. Sports photographers, they shoot tons of photos because they want to catch the one moment that captures the action just perfect. Same sort of thing. It's like you just keep shooting and shooting until, and then informing her why we're doing it, and she has to kind of imagine what's from my perspective.
Has to understand it. Can't just be told, I need you to do this 150 times.
Yeah, this is why. This is why you must suffer for art.
Yes.
You must.
It's going to look perfect.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm so glad that we were able to kind of get a sneak peek at your DC project as well too. Thank you for sharing this. What do we have next year? Wow,
this is way back when Sin City.
The
movie Sin City that came out.
Absolutely, very stylized. Yeah.
So again, I used Illustrator to draw like the really graphic. So I just had him again because it's motion. He had to, I think he stood there with the 2 guns, and I said, I want you to jump. You have to jump backwards, sort of, because you can't jump into it. Yeah, how to make him go back. I think that's what I said. So I had him standing up on something, and they had to jump, and I had to catch him in midair.
Right. Yeah.
and is a lot of shots again. He had to do it over and over and over and over. You can see how the belt's flowing.
Right.
Because when he jumped
yeah.
back,
the belts would flow back as well too with that motion.
and I think we did it jumping forward, but the way the jacket was shaped, it was catching the wind in a way that was
making it look like they were jumping forward.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which might make sense in this, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like how it looked, so I said, okay, we're gonna go backwards instead, and then I liked look better. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, very interesting. So this, how exactly did you get the stylized features that you compared to Sin City with? Like, how did this happen? How did this editing on the body occur?
The light I put on him, I think it was they call it a snoot. So it's like a light with like a little nose on it.
Right.
So it kind of pops light and almost like a spotlight kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes hard light. And when there's hard light, then I can start seeing where catching.
Exactly the shadows are.
Yeah.
Right.
So like on the pants and how it's hitting the fabric, and and then that just informs me. It's like, well, this shape, like on his hands, it's very basic shapes, but our brains are smart enough that we interpret it and we know what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, I'm just like, it presents itself, and I just follow along and
color within the lines.
Color within the line. Yeah,
for lack of a better way of saying it.
Yeah, I'm trivializing it. So yeah, that's all I did. It's basically a color.
No, that's amazing. And then again, it's just the same thing with layers in the background as well too. Yeah, no, that is fantastic. Really good. What do we have here? Oh wow.
Yeah, just something quirky.
Yeah.
We're doing something that's just flowers and stuff. So, and then it's just like, hey, let's put some in my mouth. And we did a bunch of different things, and sometimes you're not sure it's going to work. So she did some shots where she was like up with the plants growing out of her mouth, and then,
right.
But then when she faced me, because I was giving her some kind of instruction, she looked down, she kept it in her mouth, and I'm like, if I photograph it where it's sharp and you're sort of blurry in the background, it might. So that's what happened. You have to kind of roll with the situation.
Yep.
If you get too uptight about, we're only going to photograph what I pre-envisioned.
Right.
Sometimes you get a gift from the situation where it's like, well, that's unexpected and it's better.
And I mean, you have so much film that you're able to just take as many photos as you need.
Digital.
I mean, I can totally understand if I only have 80 photos I can take. Right off the bat, that's kind of like, oh, yep, I now need to be purposeful with my choices.
Yes.
So but sometimes you can be very surprised with what you can find. No, and that's just a simple like sharpness or focus. What is within focus here? So that's really nice. Excellent. Oh, we have this one. Wow, that's scary.
Yeah. So that was one again where you have to be kind of just in the moment and being aware of light and shadow and what's going on. So she was actually taking photos standing in the water. And while I'm photographing, you just have to be kind of aware. All of a sudden I realized, oh wow, the reflection of the overhanging trees are reflecting in a neat way. I'm like,
that you can't see anything else.
Yeah.
Like you don't even see the reflection of their face.
Which is, there should be, because I didn't edit it out.
There's a subtle one that you can see right there, just barely. But that...
And the sun, you can see by your reflection, the sun was setting, so it was cutting across the water. And she just went up to her neck, and it looks like now it's just a floating head with these plant-like, overhanging tree.
That's very interesting. And you didn't even edit out this reflection, and yet I find the fact that there is no reflection, that terrifies me.
Oh, yeah.
That terrifies me about this photo, is mainly because we kind of attribute that like inhuman aspect of a reflection.
Yeah.
Right?
And she's not smiling. She's
That
got
too.
a real lack of expression. If she was smiling, you might be like, oh yeah, it's okay that your head is floating.
Excellent.
That's the same person.
Neat.
So just went.
How did this happen? Layers, I think I understand. So you have a canvas in the back, and
see if we can get it all in. Oh, I'm gonna screw it up again.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, it's as much in as we can get.
Were we trying to zoom in?
Oh, there.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
Yeah. So we wanted to do a variety of fun things. So this is, I can't remember how all the planning went. We had a bunch of ideas. We did 2 or 3 ideas and her floating head and all that. And we thought, hey, let's do a fun one where we're being like blown away by a balloon. And the balloon, so the balloon's separate and she's separate. And the important thing is photographing her in the same situation as the light and getting all the angles the same.
Right, yeah.
So so the light was coming in, I guess from the right. Yeah, so we just had her on the shore of this and she just did the jump. And I photographed her while she was doing it. I got her hair flying. And again, repeating.
Repeating that again because it's motion.
Yeah. Sometimes she'd jump and her legs wouldn't be kicked up. A lot of coordination on her part. So it's like really, okay, you have to have your arms up because she's not really holding anything.
Right, yeah.
So those have to be out. You have to jump and kick your back leg and your hair has to fly. And you have to look happy about it, even though you've done it like 20 or 30 times.
This is the 30th time you've done this. Okay.
Yeah, but then it all works out.
Right.
So that whole rope is fake. I think the balloon was just photographed by itself.
Interesting. So with this photo, did you have the I guess the background in mind in order to adjudicate where the sun had to be for your initial canvas?
Yeah, so we went on the location. Yeah, it was almost like you're going to go film like a scene for a video or a movie or something. It's like you have to get to the location, establish it. So I think I photographed it first. Then it's like, okay, I got that photo, and then we have to...
Oh my. We might have a visitor. Oh, not interested in us. I digress. Like you mentioned, similar to like a film set, you have to know what your scene is first before you can make a judgment on where exactly positioning of what the sun would have to be. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful for me to understand that you came in with this in mind, that this was going to be the canvas first. So this is where the sun's going to be at, and now I need to make that mental note in order to continue on.
And the focal length of your lens has to be consistent. You can't do a wide angle shot of her and then a zoom of the background. It all has to be has to be a consistency.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Interesting.
That's her. That was the other idea we did.
Yep.
So this and the other photo was probably taken half hour apart, maybe.
Wow.
So so I had her. So I got the bottle laying beside her, and then in this shot, she was actually over here, laying down beside it, and so that we had consistency with the light. And what did I bring? I had some way of getting. I think it was like a step stool. So I was able to stand up and get an angle on her.
Get a proper angle. Okay, I see.
And again, I had so this is less strenuous for her. So she just had to lay there with her hand up, pretend that she was in the bottle.
Yeah.
But then I do a whole bunch of varieties of angles because I wasn't quite sure which angle was going to be the correct one. So
to be positioned in the bottle.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if I was a little bit too low, it wouldn't look natural. If I was too high, it wouldn't look natural. Yeah, and if I shot too low, then my perspective would be wrong. If I shot too high, then it'd be wrong the other way.
Right. So you're shooting for many angles just to try to match the perspective of what the bottle looks like in your where you're going to be placing them and what your canvas is going to be.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's another thing to consider.
Yeah.
These are things that I didn't even think about when it came to some of the photographing that we were doing before. Why you were taking so many angles. I think we're about to have a Disney princess moment here.
You think so?
Or not. I think we just let these ones go.
All right.
Adorable. Let's see what else we have here as well.
Okay.
Wow.
Yep.
That is very. Is that hair?
That is hair up there. Yep. She
It's
had like
so-
a hoodie.
Yeah, it so looks like horns. It looks like
Oh yeah.
horns. And with the lighting and kind of the facial structure as well too, it looks
See?
very devilish.
Yes. See, that's the kind of thing where color informs. It tells you something about her,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
made like a judgment of that, even though it's actually like goggles, right?
Oh,
That's what it is.
goggles.
She,
I
li-
see it now.
Yeah. she likes playing ukulele, and we thought we could do some kind of dystopian, post-apocalyptic ukulele player, steampunkish. And this shot was alongside of a building or industrial area.
Yeah.
That was part of the wall, and there was like this natural mound. She just sat on it. So if you can imagine it, this was all like the side of a building
Right.
with a concrete foundation.
Right.
But I wanted to make it look like it was a freestanding broken wall, so I
Yeah.
had to go in and
Post-apocalyptic. Right?
Yep.
Everything's
Yep.
broken.
yeah. And then I put like I think that might have been some Chernobyl actually that I
Edited in.
Edited
and put
in,
in the
blurred.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
just to make her kind of lift from the background.
Very interesting.
And then just made a nice little set, and yeah, she handled her own costuming. She had all of that available to her, so it made sense.
That's amazing. So this was a full wall.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know because I really admire the details here of kind of like the jagged edges.
Yes.
How did you do that?
So you have to go right into it.
Mhm.
And probably my background doing arts and drawing and a little bit of painting, that kind of informs it. So I had to take that wall, overextend it, and then digitally kind of fold the wall over, then roughen the edge and lighten it so it looks like it's catching some light, so you can tell that it's a 3D surface.
Wow.
And then, yeah, and it works out. So
Very nice.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, I can kind of see now that you're mentioning it too. You have a very like kind of like orange hinge on this. It's very dark, and
Yeah.
that really makes it pop as well too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very informative. I still only see horns. I know they're goggles, but I only see horns right now.
Yep.
That's very cool. Let's see what else we got here. Ooh,
This is a pretty,
that is a tight fit.
yep. So we want to do something interdimensional,
Yeah, yeah.
climbing through like a picture frame. I have a real estate friend. She had this old abandoned house that was going to get demolished and turned into something new.
Hmm.
And I said, "Oh, can I get in there and maybe photograph it in the attic?" 'Cause there's the attic of this old house from the 1940s or something. So yeah, I just brought her in and set up a light, and she had to do all the acting. She had to look like she's sort of like emerging into this.
Unknown location.
Yeah,
Right.
yep.
Yeah. No. Very interesting. And I guess that's just proportionally sizing it to the window as well too. They
Mm.
look very large for this room.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like in my perspective, at least, it looks, or it's a very small window.
Actually, it was kind of a small window. Maybe
Yeah.
only a foot by 2 feet or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah. Then, yeah, I think she just put one arm through it, and so I had to take 2 shots on tripod. So I set up the tripod, took a shot of the room with nothing in it, then had her step in, then we photographed it again, so that when I bring it into Photoshop layer, I have 2 overlapping images, one with nothing and one
Mhm.
with her there with her arm through the frame.
Right.
So then it was easy. I could just go around and just clip her out,
Right.
it leaves a floating.
And the lighting definitely matches. Like you can see it kind of along the skin, and then you can see it on the
Oh,
floor.
yeah.
This is the very dark portion.
Mhm.
So did you have to add this shadow in post?
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't recall doing it, so it was probably just natural.
Hmm.
And all this light is probably coming from that window.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. But it's still kind of like mimicking this.
Yeah.
Kind of mimics this in
yep.
essence as well too. So that's
Yeah, so it feels like it's,
another piece of importance of lighting.
yes,
As well.
yeah.
Oh, that's very cool.
Ah,
Ooh, more fabrics.
yeah, more.
How?
Must have had a fabric thing.
How? They have no base, no legs to stand on
Yes,
practically.
yeah.
How did this happen?
This is similar to the last one. Took a shot of the empty room,
Yeah.
and she had her friend and her boyfriend there with, they just wrapped This is the same fabric as that other one out in the will. I made a lot of use of that one.
Yeah.
But they just stood off camera and they held it. And because it had a little bit of a stretch to it, she could just sort of fall into it and lean and then just do whatever she wanted.
Right.
And then, because I had the blank shot as well as this shot, I could blend it out and delete them and just make it look like, yeah.
So did they like jump up, or did you just cut it off?
I think
at this point?
she was standing and just leaning into it. So
Really?
yeah.
Oh wow.
So I just edited her legs out.
Okay, perfect. So
Yeah.
yeah, you just edited the legs out, and
Yeah.
that was it. I thought that they had to jump up and
Oh, yeah.
land this a lot easier. Editing makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
And safer.
And she found it pretty fun.
Yeah.
Just because she could just like,
Just be held.
yeah, just roll around in it and
Yeah.
just do whatever she wanted.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah.
Very nice.
oh, there's still more. This one isn't, this is probably more editing. So there's color spectrum and I could take out certain colors and just dial it down, like desaturate it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the, what colors did I take out? Greens and yellows, orange, greens, yellows, and oranges. So
Yeah.
you can still see it looks a bit red, but only left sort of blue and magenta and black.
These are all colors that very complement that, like, very cool colors that really complement this nature. Because for me, like how they're dressed, and kind of like these colors on the what looks like to be Badlands here almost makes me think of a Sahara Desert.
Yeah.
This is like that type of vibe for me.
Yeah.
So
And she just wanted to be like some kind of archer, and she built her own bow and arrows and
wow. Yeah.
so it was,
some really, really cool examples of practical and editorial effects as well too.
that's from a long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
What do we have next here?
Well, this one, this we had an idea. This is similar to what we were trying to accomplish with the miniatures.
Yeah.
So I just photographed this Badland scene with some rocks in it. And then I photographed her in the same scene and just said, I'm going to shrink you down so you look like you're sort of staying in the desert. And she has like this, I don't know, some kind of priestess kind of vibe going on. And
yeah.
so there she is. She's a lone apostle walking through the desert or something.
And again, keeping in mind of that lighting, making sure that the shadows kind of like line up for the most part. So you still had to take a full body photo with the full shadow involved as well too, in order to shrink both of those down. Is that right?
The shadow I had to recreate.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to imagine the sun hitting her and how it might cast.
That adds a lot of flexibility, but I can imagine that being a very meticulous.
Yeah. You have to imagine like how her arm was stretched, and then you just do as best you can. I could be very critical, but I could be like, oh, maybe the shadow could have been a little shorter, or I don't know.
That's kind of what I was meaning as well too. Is like you could that could take a lot of time as well. But, but still very interesting that you're still able to create something that looks so fitting just through editorial. Like again, you can do a lot of this stuff just through editing, but also mixing in the practical and digital effects is very cool.
Yeah. Well, okay. That's the same person as the last shot. And this is just
another example of some practical effects.
Yep.
Really
coming up with a concept. She wanted to do the running mascara, but kind of dramatize it further. And I had to figure out where to photograph her. And black and white seems to emphasizes that gothic look.
Yeah, and that contrast as well too.
Yep.
Perfect. And then I think we got our last photo here, which is our fully edited final product for more or less of what we did at the beginning of this feature here.
And there we have it.
That is so cool. Very neat. What this and we saw this broke down. So I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat and try to ask, how did you do this?
Yeah.
But what brought you to sand, and what brought you to these ruins and all that?
It just seems appropriate.
Yeah.
under the circumstances
Mhm.
to. So before it was that patch of sand with a lot of grass around.
We are still filming in the same location where we took the photos.
Yeah. So it's probably the role-playing game kind of. You need to have some ruins and
Something that's fantastical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a learning process too, since we sort of shot it kind of, off the cuff, and I think if we had more time to like think and plot it out further, we might have been able to have even gone beyond what we were able to get. But yeah, you can see we did a whole series of him running. I don't know how many, must have had like 30 or 40 shots of him just running with the sword.
Perry just going in with the sword in for battle, and then again, I was the easy one where I just had to pose a couple times with a few grimaces.
And put on like your war face.
Yeah.
And we could zoom in on. Oh, I'll let you do it.
Here.
Crash it again. We can get in over here.
Yeah, you can really see kind of those war faces coming out.
Other considerations I've noticed. So, like the texture of the sand and trying to like integrate. We had to take the stands out of all the. So it's like, I think it worked out as a fun experiment.
Yeah. Yep. Would you do it again?
Yeah. Maybe then we'd have to think of like some really particular location. And I still have the other photos we're going to try out too. So the shotgun.
Yeah, that's right.
They're still they're still sitting on the edge of my desk.
That's
okay. So to speak.
I'm very excited to kind of check those out as well too. But that seems to be everything that we have. I hope for our viewers we've learned something so far. I know I definitely have, especially just kind of talking out these photos with yourself and getting to be able to see kind of like what we've talked about already, the DC project and seeing what we just did, the whole process put together in a final piece as well too. So thank you again so much for agreeing to meet with us and just kind of talk this out.
Yeah.
When can we expect your next work?
Well, let me think. What are we doing? I'm doing some experiments later this week. We're gonna try and capture water impacting like skin.
Very cool.
And it tends to come off in like kind of like clear sheets, almost like glass.
Yeah.
So we're going to experiment and see what kind of things we can get out of that.
And where can we check this out?
Well, I got my Instagram account. So that's Darin Clisby on Instagram. And Darin spelled like Darin. And that's the primary place. Although a lot of people recently, for some reason, they're like, do you have a website? And I'm like, I should get a website.
Well, for right now, that seems to be a very good spot where we can start kind of viewing some more photos similar to these as well at Darin Clisby on Instagram as well too. So again, thank you again so much for your time, your energy, and just and showing us all the stuff that you do. It's been very informative. So that's all the time that we have today, folks. This has been the Windy City's Finest. I'm Clark. He's Perry. And this has been Darin Clisby. See you later, folks.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Clark and Perry, do what it takes. Clark and Perry, investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's Finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.